my definition of loose parts. Come here.
Random shit.
Welcome to my channel where I give you straightforward tips on how to have the best Reggio-inspired classroom. What are loose parts? I'm not even going to get all philosophical on you because yes, all of that information is important and crucial to know. But when I was coming up in Reggio, I just feel like no one ever gave me practicality. So I'm going to give you my definition of loose parts. Come here.
Random shit.
So I'm going to break loose parts down into 4 categories. And the first category is natural. So natural loose parts are all things outside, basically. Rocks, sticks, leaves. The pros about natural loose parts are that they are free and they're easy to find. Anyone can go outside right now and bring in rocks and sticks to their classroom and make it a provocation. But in the same breath, they're hard to find because I'll give you an example. My education consultant at my current program, she brought in tree gum pods. And I'm going to insert a picture of what they look like. They're pretty funky. And I've never seen those in my life. So, I mean, if you don't live in an interesting area and you're looking for a variety of natural loose parts, they're kind of hard to find. So you'll mostly get yourself some rocks, sticks, acorns, pine cones at most. The second form of loose parts are unintentional loose parts. And these come from moseying around your house or eating or drinking something and noticing, if I save the container or what have you, I can use this for my provocations or bring them to school for the kids. And an example of this one is my kids for lunch. They always bring those little squeezy pouches, the applesauce, and the top looks like this. And these are things where, you didn't buy the applesauce intentionally to save the top, but you notice that, maybe we can start to collect these and use them later. So the pros of this type of loose part is that it's rewarding because you really have to start to develop an eye for things that you would bring in. A con is that it could take a while to accumulate these materials. These things, I have about 7 kids per day who have these. So it wasn't hard at all to build a collection. This was pretty easy. But something like, say you're drinking a can of soda and you have an eye for the fact that you can rip the top off, that little top that pops the can open, you can start to save those. But how many cans of soda are you going to need to drink before it's useful? So the third type of loose part is intentional. And so intentional is pretty easy. If you want to do something with buttons, then you go on Amazon and you buy yourself some buttons. That's the easiest one. A con is that it's a little less authentic. Authentically, you would want, a child's button to pop off and say, oh, wow, look at this. We can save this. But then that would be the unintentional one, and it would take you forever for the kids to lose buttons in order for it to be purposeful in your classroom. So a pro of intentional is that you don't have to wait 2 years. If you need it, you buy it. And lastly, the last form of a loose part is an isolated part. I used to think that loose parts only meant that it had to be these little tiny manipulatives that you needed 1,000 of them for them to be loose parts, but it can be one thing. An example of this is I found an old laminator in my garage that was still working, and I brought that in. The kids were able to maneuver the buttons and see what you need to do to print the paper out, to cut the paper. They were typing up, trying their best to type up their names or what have you. And that in itself is an isolated loose part. There's nothing more, there's nothing less. A con of this is there's only one. So you might have a little competition when it comes to sharing. And also you have to be willing to part with it because usually they're big ticket items. So at one point in your life, it probably was a pretty penny. And now at this point in your life, you have to be willing to give it up. So those were my 4 categories of what loose parts are. And if you stick around to part 2 of this video, I'm going to show you an example of each type while I show you how I build up my provocations. So see you there.
I love you, Miss Queen.